The Afghan sun beat down mercilessly on the convoy of 4 Humvees as they wound through the narrow mountain pass. Staff Sergeant Maya Torres sat in the third vehicle, her M4 carbine resting across her lap, eyes scanning the ridgeline out of habit. The landscape was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way. Jagged peaks jutting toward a cloudless sky, ancient rock formations that had witnessed countless battles over thousands of years. "Another milk run," Corporal Davis said from the driver's seat, his hands relaxed on the wheel. "Should be back at base in time for chow." Maya didn't respond. Something felt wrong. The hair on the back of her neck stood up, that primal instinct that separated survivors from casualties. The pass was too quiet. No birds, no movement, just the rumble of diesel engines and the crunch of tires on gravel. She keyed her radio. "Lead vehicle, this is 3. Recommend we." The world exploded. The lead Humvee erupted in a massive fireball, the IED detonating with such force that the shockwave hit Maya's chest like a physical blow. The vehicle lifted completely off the ground, flipping end over end before crashing down in a twisted heap of burning metal. Maya felt the blast before she heard it, a pressure wave that sucked the air from her lungs. "Contact, contact," someone screamed over the radio. Then the ridgelines came alive. Muzzle flashes sparked from dozens of positions, a coordinated ambush, perfectly executed. The sharp crack of AK-47s mixed with the deeper boom of RPGs. A rocket-propelled grenade streaked past their windshield, missing by inches, and exploded against the cliff wall behind them. "Evasive, evasive," Davis yanked the wheel hard right. "Too hard." The Humvee's wheels caught the edge of the road where it crumbled away. Maya felt the sickening sensation of weightlessness as they tipped, then the world became a violent tumble of metal, glass, and bodies. She slammed against her restraints, then the door frame, then the roof as the vehicle rolled. Once, twice. The sound was deafening, metal shrieking, glass shattering, men screaming. When the Humvee finally stopped rolling, it was on its side. Maya hung suspended by her seatbelt, disoriented, her ears ringing. Warm liquid ran down her face, blood, she realized distantly. Then the pain hit. Her left leg was pinned beneath the collapsed door frame, crushed at an angle that made her stomach turn. Worse, she felt wetness spreading across her left side, hot and sticky. Shrapnel. She'd taken shrapnel to her ribs. "Davis," she gasped. The corporal hung motionless in his restraints, head tilted at an unnatural angle. Dead, neck broken in the rollover. Outside, the battle raged. Bullets punched through the armored hull with metallic pings. She heard screaming, American voices calling for medics for cover for their mothers. Through the shattered windshield, she saw the second Humvee had stopped, its gunner slumped over his .50 cal, body riddled with rounds. The fourth vehicle was trying to back up, its driver panicking. Then she saw Lieutenant Morrison stumble from the burning lead vehicle, his uniform on fire. He managed 3 steps before insurgent fire cut him down. Their commanding officer, the man responsible for coordinating their defense, lay dead in the dirt. "We're going to die here," someone sobbed over the radio. "We're all going to die." Maya's training, the training that wasn't supposed to exist, kicked in. Her mind became ice-cold, analytical. She counted muzzle flashes, 15, maybe 20 enemy fighters. They had the high ground, numerical advantage, and surprise. The convoy was pinned in a kill zone with limited cover and no leadership. Someone had to take charge. Gritting her teeth against the agony, Maya unclipped her seatbelt and dropped awkwardly onto what was now the floor. Her pinned legs screamed in protest, and she felt something grind in ways bones shouldn't grind. Fresh blood welled from her side where the shrapnel wound tore wider with movement. She needed a tourniquet, now. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, muscle memory from hundreds of training repetitions she wasn't supposed to remember. She pulled the cat tourniquet from her med pouch, positioned it high on her thigh, higher than the injury, and cranked the windlass. The pain was excruciating, white-hot agony that made her vision blur, but the bleeding slowed. That's when she noticed the other passenger in her vehicle. Petty Officer First Class Jake Reeves, the Navy SEAL medic who'd hitched a ride back to base after a joint operation. He was already moving, crawling through the destroyed Humvee toward the rear hatch with his medical ruck. "You're hit," he said, his eyes quickly assessing her injuries with professional detachment. "I'm functional," Maya replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "The others need you more." Jake hesitated, clearly wanting to argue, but another scream from outside decided him. "Don't move. I'll be back." He kicked open the rear hatch and combat crawled toward the nearest casualties. Maya watched him go, then turned her attention to the destroyed radio equipment. The convoy's communications were their lifeline. Without it, no quick reaction force, no air support, no rescue. Just death. She dragged herself toward the radio mount, her injured leg leaving a smear of blood across the metal floor. Every movement was agony, but she'd endured worse in training. The radio was sparking, half the wiring torn loose in the crash. But maybe, just maybe. Outside, Jake's voice carried over the chaos. "I need cover. Someone give me suppressing fire." Maya could hear the desperation in his tone. They were losing. The SEALs didn't lose, but without leadership, without coordination, even the best-trained soldiers became casualties. Her fingers found the radio's guts, sorting through the tangled mess of wires and circuits. There. The main power lead had torn free, but the backup battery was intact. She stripped wires with her knife, her hands surprisingly steady despite the blood loss, and began jerry-rigging connections. "Come on," she thought, "work, please work." A bullet punched through the hull inches from her head, but Maya didn't flinch. She twisted the final wires together, and the radio sparked to life with a burst of static. She grabbed the handset, keying the emergency frequency. "Any station, this is Falcon 3-6. Troops in contact, danger close. Request immediate QRF and air support. How copy?" For a moment only static answered. Then, "Falcon 3-6, this is Warhammer, Maine. Send your grid coordinates and sitrep." Maya rattled off their position from memory, her voice crisp and professional despite the pain threatening to drag her under. 4 vehicles ambush, 15 to 20 enemy fighters on the ridgeline. We have multiple casualties. KIA includes our commanding officer. We need support now. Roger 3-6. QRF is spinning up, 8 minutes out. Apache gun runs inbound, 3 minutes. Can you mark targets? Maya's eyes found the smoke grenade on her vest. Affirmative. Stand by for target marking. She dropped the handset and began the agonizing crawl toward the rear hatch. Through the opening, she could see the battle. Jake working frantically on a soldier with a sucking chest wound, blood everywhere. 2 privates huddled behind a wheel well, firing blindly over their shoulders, and the enemy closing in, emboldened by the Americans' disorganization. Maya pulled herself through the hatch, collapsing into the dirt outside. Her vision swam, black spots dancing at the edges. Blood loss. She was running on borrowed time. "Need defensive positions," she gasped. One of the privates, barely 19 years old, face streaked with tears and dirt, stared at her. "The LT's dead, we don't." "I'm giving orders now." Maya's voice cracked like a whip, cutting through his panic. Years of leadership training that officially never happened surged to the surface. "You and Jackson establish a perimeter on the north side. Sustained fire, keep their heads down. Reeves, how many critical?" Jake looked up from his patient, surprise flickering across his face. 3 critical, 5 wounded but mobile. Mobile wounded, grab weapons from the KIAs and form a firing line. We hold until the cavalry arrives. 3 minutes. We can last 3 minutes. Something in her tone, the absolute certainty, the command presence, cut through the panic. The soldiers moved, taking positions, finally fighting back with coordination instead of chaos. Maya pulled the smoke grenade. yanked the pin, and hurled it toward the densest cluster of muzzle flashes. Purple smoke billowed across the ridgeline. Warhammer targets marked with purple smoke, clear hot. Roger 3-6, birds inbound, keep your heads down. The Apache attack helicopters came in low and fast, their 30 chain guns roaring. The ridgeline erupted in explosions and dust. Enemy fire slackened immediately as the insurgents broke and ran. Maya allowed herself a small, grim smile. They were going to make it. Then she saw him, an insurgent fighter who'd circled around, emerging from behind a boulder barely 20 feet away. AK-47 raised and aimed directly at Jake's back as he worked on his patient. No time to shout a warning, no time to think. Maya's hand dropped to her sidearm, drawing in one fluid motion. Her M9 came up, sight picture perfect despite her shaking hands, despite the blood loss, despite the pain. She fired twice. Both rounds struck center mass. The insurgent crumpled. Jake spun around, eyes wide, staring at the dead fighter, then at Maya. She saw the questions forming on his face, the recognition that something didn't add up about the logistics officer who shot like a competitive marksman. But before either could speak, the world tilted sideways. Maya's strength finally gave out, blood loss pulling her down into darkness. The last thing she heard was Jake's voice calling her name, his hands pressing against her wounds, trying to keep her alive. Then nothing. Maya's world was pain and fragmented consciousness. She felt hands on her, firm, professional, moving with purpose. Pressure on her side where the shrapnel had torn through. A voice, male, calm but urgent, cutting through the fog. "Stay with me, Tors. You don't get to check out now. Not after that stunt." Jake, the SEAL medic. She tried to speak, but only a groan escaped her lips. "Thready pulse, significant blood loss from the abdominal wound and the femoral artery," Jake muttered, more to himself than anyone else. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, packing her side wound with quick clot gauze. The hemostatic agent burned like fire, jolting Maya closer to consciousness. "Tourniquet probably saved your life, but we need to get you out of here. Now." Through slitted eyes, Maya saw him working. His uniform was soaked in blood, hers, and that of the other casualties he'd been treating. But his hands were steady, his face a mask of professional concentration. She'd seen that look before, on the faces of special operations medics during her classified training. The look of someone who refused to let death win. "Warhammer, this is Reeves," Jake spoke into his radio headset. "I need urgent medevac for a priority alpha. Female, late 20s, gunshot wound to left femoral region with successful tourniquet placement, penetrating shrapnel wound to left flank, possible internal bleeding. Also multiple orthopedic trauma to left lower extremity. She's critical but stable." The Apache helicopters continued their gun runs overhead, the thunderous roar of their chain guns providing cover as the quick reaction force Humvees screamed into the kill zone. Soldiers poured out, establishing a defensive perimeter, medics rushing to the wounded. A staff sergeant from the QRF approached Jake, taking in the carnage. "Jesus Christ, what happened here?" "Coordinated ambush," Jake replied, still working on Maya. "IED followed by small arms fire from elevated positions. They knew our route, our timing. This was planned." "Who organized the defense? It looks like you held them off pretty damn well considering." Jake's eyes flicked to Maya's unconscious form. "She did, the logistics officer. She took command after the LT was killed." The staff sergeant's eyebrows shot up. "A logistics officer? You're kidding." "I don't kid about stuff like this." Jake finished securing Maya's bandages and looked up. She repaired our comms under fire, called in the QRF, marked targets for the gun runs, and organized the defensive perimeter, all with a mangled leg and a shrapnel wound that should have put her in shock. The sergeant whistled low. "Well, I'll be damned." The distinctive whump-whump-whump of a Black Hawk medevac helicopter grew louder as it approached. Jake waved it in, and within seconds the bird was on the ground, rotors kicking up a maelstrom of dust and debris. "Let's move," Jake shouted, helping lift Maya's stretcher. He ran alongside as they loaded her into the helicopter, climbing in without hesitation. "I'm riding with her." The crew chief started to protest, but something in Jake's expression killed the objection. The Black Hawk lifted off, banking hard as it climbed away from the kill zone. Inside the helicopter, Jake continued his work, starting an IV line and checking Maya's vitals. Her blood pressure was dangerously low. He hung a bag of O-negative blood and opened it wide. "Come on, Tors," he muttered. "Don't you dare die on me." Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. Did we? "Yeah, we made it. Everyone you saved is going to make it because of you." He checked her pupil response with a penlight. "But you need to stay awake. Talk to me. Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" A ghost of a smile crossed her pale lips. "Army, basic." "Bullshit." Jake's tone was gentle but firm. "I've been doing this for 8 years. I've worked with Rangers, Delta, Green Berets. That shot you made, that was operator-level precision. Double tap, center mass under stress while bleeding out. That's not basic training, Tors." Maya's eyes drifted closed again. "Hey, stay with me," Jake tapped her cheek. "Come on, Staff Sergeant, you didn't survive an ambush just to quit now." Her eyes opened again, and for just a moment Jake saw something there. A flash of the person beneath the uniform, the warrior hiding behind the logistics officer designation. Then it was gone, replaced by confusion and pain. "Tired," she whispered. "I know, but you need to stay awake. Tell me something, anything. Where are you from?" "San Antonio." Her voice was barely audible over the helicopter's roar. "Parents, both Army, wanted to make them proud." "You did, Tors. You absolutely did." The flight medic leaned over, checking the IV flow. 5 minutes to Bagram." Jake nodded, his hand instinctively going to Maya's wrist, checking her pulse. Still weak but steady. She was a fighter, that much was clear. But the questions nagged at him. Her movements during the firefight, the way she'd taken command, the perfect execution of that shot. None of it matched her service record. He'd seen her personnel file when they'd loaded into the convoy that morning. A routine precaution, knowing who was in your vehicle. Staff Sergeant Maya Tors, 92A Automated Logistical Specialist, assigned to Forward Operating Base Chapman for Supply Chain Management. 3 years in service, 2 deployments, a handful of commendations for logistical efficiency. Nothing about combat training, nothing about tactical operations. Yet she'd moved through that firefight like she'd been born for it. The emergency room at Bagram Airfield was controlled chaos. Maya was rushed into surgery immediately, the trauma team working to repair the damage to her femoral artery and remove the shrapnel from her abdominal cavity. Jake waited outside, still covered in her blood, refusing to leave until he knew she'd made it through. Hours passed. Other wounded from the convoy arrived, and Jake helped where he could, his medical training overriding his exhaustion. He set fractures, sutured lacerations, held hands of scared 19-year-olds who just experienced their first real combat. Finally, a surgeon emerged from the OR pulling down his mask. "She's stable. The artery repair went well and we got all the shrapnel. Her leg's going to need extensive orthopedic work. We've stabilized it for now, but she'll probably need more surgeries stateside. She's lucky to be alive." "Can I see her?" The surgeon nodded. "Recovery room, but she's still under anesthesia." Jake found Maya in a bed surrounded by monitors, her face pale against the white sheets. Her left leg was immobilized in an external fixator, metal rods and pins holding the shattered bone in alignment. Bandages wrapped her torso. She looked small, vulnerable, nothing like the warrior he'd seen in the firefight. He pulled up a chair and sat, suddenly exhausted. As he watched her breathe, watched the steady rhythm of her heart monitor, his mind churned through the inconsistencies. The way she'd applied that tourniquet with textbook precision, most soldiers fumbled with them under stress. The way she'd assessed the tactical situation and made command decisions instantly. The way she'd handled her sidearm. Who was Maya Torres, really? He dozed off in the chair, waking hours later to find her eyes open, watching him. "Hey," he said softly, "welcome back." "How long?" Her voice was hoarse from the breathing tube. 18 hours since the ambush. You've been out of surgery for about 6. Maya tried to move, then grimaced as pain shot through her leg. "The others?" "All stable. The 3 critical cases are going to make it. Davis didn't survive the rollover." Jake leaned forward. "Maya, you saved 6 lives yesterday, maybe more. If you hadn't gotten that radio working, hadn't organized the defense." "Just did what needed doing," she said, looking away. "That's just it. Most people freeze. Most people panic. You moved like you'd done it 1,000 times before." He kept his voice casual, non-threatening. "Where did you really learn that, Maya?" Her jaw tightened. "I told you, basic training." "Right. And I'm just a simple medic who doesn't know the difference between basic combat skills and special operations level performance." Before Maya could respond, the curtain around her bed pulled back. A man in civilian clothes stood there, khakis and a polo shirt that screamed contractor. But the bearing was pure military. His ID badge hung from his neck, Department of Defense, Office of Special Projects. No name, just a number. The man's eyes were cold, assessing. He looked at Jake with the kind of stare that made even SEALs uncomfortable. "Petty Officer Reeves," the man said, his voice flat and authoritative. "I need to speak with Staff Sergeant Torres privately. Medical matters." It wasn't a request. Jake stood slowly, his eyes meeting Maya's. He saw something there, a flash of resignation, maybe fear. "I'll be right outside," he told her. As he stepped through the curtain, he heard the man speak, his voice low but carrying. "You broke protocol, Torres. The engagement rules were clear." Maya's reply was defiant, stronger than Jake expected from someone who'd just come out of surgery. "I saved American lives. That was my protocol." "Your protocol was to maintain your cover. Your protocol was to not draw attention. Your protocol." "My protocol went out the window when that IED detonated." Maya's voice rose, angry now. "What was I supposed to do? Let them die to protect a program that doesn't even officially exist?" Jake's blood ran cold. He stepped away from the curtain, his mind racing. A program that doesn't officially exist. Cover, special projects. Maya Torres wasn't just a logistics officer. The question was, what was she really? And why had someone gone to such lengths to hide it? Jake stood frozen outside the curtain, his hand still resting on the fabric where he'd let it fall. The voices inside continued, muffled but heated. "You're being transferred to Landstuhl in 48 hours, the contractor said. "Germany, then stateside for continued rehabilitation. Your deployment is over, Staff Sergeant." "I'm not done here." Maya's voice was strained but determined. "Yes, you are. The program. The program ended 3 years ago." Maya's frustration was palpable. "I've been pushing supply requisitions and inventory spreadsheets while men with half my training get to do the job I was prepared for." "Lower your voice, Torres." The man's tone turned dangerous. "There are people who would be very interested to know about your specialized skill set. People in Congress who killed the program in the first place. People who could make your life very difficult." A long silence followed. When Maya spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper, but Jake caught every word. "I saved lives yesterday. Doesn't that count for anything?" "It counts for proving why women shouldn't be in combat roles." The contractor's words were brutal. "You took unnecessary risks. You exposed yourself. You made that SEAL medic curious. Now I have to do damage control." Jake won't say anything. "Jake," the man's voice took on a mocking edge, "you're on a first-name basis already. That's convenient, or maybe it's a problem. It's not like that. Better not be, because if any word of Project Athena leaks, if anyone starts asking questions about where you really learned those skills, it won't just be your career that's over. There are national security implications you can't begin to imagine. Jake's mind raced. Project Athena, a black program, everything was starting to make a terrible kind of sense. He heard movement inside, the man preparing to leave. Jake quickly walked down the hallway, putting distance between himself and the recovery area, trying to look like he'd been gone for minutes rather than seconds. The contractor emerged, his face an unreadable mask. He walked past Jake without acknowledgement, but Jake felt the weight of his stare, a warning clear as day. Then the man was gone, disappearing into the maze of hospital corridors. Jake waited a full minute before returning to Maya's bedside. She was staring at the ceiling, her jaw clenched, fighting back tears of frustration or pain, maybe both. "You okay?" he asked softly. She wiped her eyes quickly, trying to compose herself. "Yeah, just post-surgery emotions. The drugs make you weepy." Jake pulled the chair closer and sat down. He should let it go, walk away, forget what he'd heard. But he'd never been good at letting things go, especially when they didn't make sense. "Maya, I'm not trying to put you in a difficult position," he began carefully. "But yesterday, what you did out there, it was extraordinary, and I've seen extraordinary. I've worked with the best operators in the world." He paused, choosing his words. "Whatever your story is, whatever you're not allowed to talk about, I respect that. I have clearances too. I know how secrets work." Maya turned her head to look at him, searching his face for something. Sincerity, maybe, or trustworthiness. Whatever she found there seemed to satisfy her, because her expression softened slightly. "It doesn't matter anymore," she said quietly. "Whatever I was trained to do, whatever they promised me, it's over. I'm being shipped to Germany, then stateside. Medical discharge probably, desk job if I'm lucky." She laughed bitterly. "Back to counting bullets instead of using them." "You don't know that, your leg." "My leg is destroyed, Jake. I felt it shatter. I know what compound fractures mean. I know the recovery time, the rehabilitation requirements." Her voice cracked. "I know my career is over before it ever really started." Jake wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but he'd seen the x-rays. The orthopedic surgeon had shown him. The femur was shattered in 3 places, the tibia fractured, ligament damaged throughout. It was a miracle she'd been able to move at all, let alone fight. "For what it's worth," Jake said, "you were better than most of the operators I've worked with. Whatever program trained you, they did it right." Maya's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Thanks, that actually means a lot coming from you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the beeping of monitors and distant hospital sounds filling the space between them. Finally, Maya spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why are you still here? You're a SEAL. You have your own team, your own missions. Why are you sitting in a hospital room with a logistics officer you barely know?" Jake considered the question. Why was he here? Professional courtesy, medical responsibility, or something else? That nagging curiosity about the woman who'd saved his life and didn't fit the mold she'd been placed in. "Honestly, I'm not sure," he admitted. "Maybe because I recognize something in you. That look in your eyes when you're fighting, when you're pushing through pain that would drop most people. I've seen it in the mirror. It's the look of someone who has something to prove." "And what do I have to prove?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Jake smiled. "But I have a feeling you'll find a way to answer it." Before Maya could respond, a nurse entered, clipboard in hand. "Staff Sergeant Torres, I need to do a vitals check, and the doctor wants to discuss your transfer arrangements." Jake stood. "I should go, let you rest." "Jake," Maya called as he reached the curtain, "thank you for everything." He nodded and left, his mind still churning with questions. Over the next 2 days, Jake found himself drawn back to Maya's bedside during his off hours. He told himself it was professional, checking on a patient, making sure she was healing properly. But the truth was more complicated. They talked about small things at first: favorite movies, worst MRE flavors, places they wanted to visit when they got home. Maya was funny, sharp-witted despite the pain medications. She told stories about logistical disasters in combat zones that had Jake laughing until his sides hurt. She never mentioned the ambush directly, never talked about her mysterious past, and Jake didn't push. But he noticed things. The way she assessed every person who entered her room, threat analysis, automatic and unconscious. The way her eyes tracked exits and entrances. The way she positioned herself in the bed to maintain maximum visibility of the doorway, despite it causing her more pain. These weren't the habits of a supply sergeant. These were the habits of someone trained to operate in hostile territory. On her last day at Bagram, Jake brought her coffee. Real coffee, not the hospital swill, acquired through the mysterious channels that SEALs always seem to have access to. "You're being nice to me," Maya said, accepting the cup gratefully. "Why? Can't I just be a decent human being?" SEALs aren't known for sentiment. Jake laughed. "Fair point," he sobered. "Look, I know you're headed to Germany, then stateside. I know your recovery is going to be long and hard, but I want you to know something." Maya waited, her dark eyes fixed on his face. "Whatever happens, whatever they try to tell you about your limitations or your future, don't believe them. You're stronger than they know, tougher than they can measure. And if you decide you want to fight your way back, really fight, I'll help however I can." "You don't even know me," Maya whispered. "I know enough. I know you're a warrior, even if the army doesn't want to admit it." Jake pulled out a piece of paper with his email address written on it. "No pressure. But if you need anything, advice, resources, just someone to vent to, reach out." Maya took the paper, holding it like it was something precious. "Why are you doing this?" Jake stood, shouldering his pack. His team was rotating out in 6 hours, heading back to their compound for the next operation. "Because 6 months ago, I watched a friend get medically retired after an IED took his leg. The VA and the Army told him he was done, washed up at 27. Know what he's doing now?" "What?" "Competing in triathlons, training other wounded warriors, living his best life out of pure spite." Jake grinned. Never underestimate the power of stubbornness and a good support system. A genuine smile crossed Maya's face, the first real one Jake had seen. "Spite, I can work with that." "Thought you might." The transport medic appeared in the doorway. "Staff Sergeant Torres, your flight to Landstuhl leaves in 30 minutes. We need to prep you for transport." Jake extended his hand. Maya shook it, her grip surprisingly strong. "See you around, Petty Officer Reeves." "Count on it, Staff Sergeant Torres." As Jake walked away, he glanced back once. Maya was tucking his email address into her pocket, that determined look back in her eyes. Whatever battles she faced ahead, he had a feeling she wouldn't be facing them quietly. In the corridor, he nearly collided with the DoD contractor from before. The man studied him with cold calculation. "Petty Officer Reeves, I trust your conversation with Staff Sergeant Torres was appropriate." Jake met his stare without flinching. "Just checking on a patient, sir. Professional courtesy." "Of course." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "A word of advice. Some things are better left unexamined. Some questions are better left unasked, for everyone's benefit." "I'm a medic, not an investigator," Jake replied evenly. "I know my lane." The contractor nodded slowly. "See that you stay in it." He walked away, leaving Jake standing alone in the hallway. But as Jake headed back to his team's area, he pulled out his phone and opened a secure message to an old friend, a buddy from Bud's training who now worked in Naval Special Warfare Development Group. "Hey, need a favor. Ever hear of something called Project Athena? trying to understand something I witnessed. Curiosity only. The response came back minutes later. Never heard of it. But if it's black enough that I haven't heard of it, you probably shouldn't be asking. Why? Jake stared at his phone for a long moment before typing. Met someone interesting. Skill set doesn't match their resume. Leave it alone, brother. Those programs have teeth. Jake deleted the message thread and pocketed his phone. Good advice. He probably wouldn't take it. 3 months later, Naval Medical Center San Diego glowed under the California sun, its white walls a stark contrast to the dusty compounds of Afghanistan. Jake walked through the physical therapy wing, his duty bag slung over one shoulder, heading toward an appointment with a sports medicine specialist. His shoulder had been bothering him since a training accident 2 weeks prior, nothing serious, but enough to warrant a professional opinion. He stopped dead in the corridor, his bag slipping from his grip. Maya Torres was there. She stood at a weight rack, her back to him, wearing black compression shorts and a gray Army PT shirt soaked through with sweat. Her left leg, the one that had been shattered, was supporting her full body weight as she executed a perfect pistol squat. The movement was slow, controlled, the kind of exercise that required immense strength and balance even for healthy athletes. Jake watched in stunned silence as she completed the rep, then another, her face contorted with concentration and pain. Her leg trembled violently on the third rep, and for a moment he thought she'd collapse, but she gritted her teeth and pushed through, rising to full standing. Only then did she see him. Her eyes widened in surprise. Jake. Maya. He walked closer, his trained eye automatically assessing her. She'd lost weight, too much weight, and there were dark circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and relentless pain. But there was also something else, a fierce determination burning in her gaze that hadn't been there before. What the hell are you doing? Physical therapy. She grabbed a towel, wiping sweat from her face. What does it look like? It looks like you're trying to destroy that leg. Jake gestured at her left side. You should be using a cane still. The orthopedic timeline for compound femoral fractures is 12 to 16 weeks for weight-bearing activities, 18 to 24 weeks for return to normal function, 6 to 12 months for full recovery. Maya cut him off, her voice sharp. I know the timeline, Jake. I also know I don't have 6 months. Jake set down his bag, studying her more carefully. The external fixator was gone, replaced by what looked like a custom brace. But even through the compression fabric, he could see the angry red scars running up her thigh and side, surgical incisions, poorly healed, that suggested she'd rushed through recovery. Come on, he said, coffee now. I have another hour of. Not a request, Staff Sergeant. Something in his tone, the command voice he used with junior operators who were about to do something stupid, made Maya pause. She nodded slowly. Fine, but I'm buying. I owe you about a dozen coffees anyway. The hospital cafeteria was quiet, the afternoon lull between lunch and dinner. They sat in a corner booth, 2 styrofoam cups of mediocre coffee between them. Maya wrapped her hands around her cup like it was a lifeline, avoiding Jake's eyes. So, Jake said finally, you going to tell me what's really going on? Maya was silent for a long moment, staring into the dark liquid. When she spoke, her voice was tired. They want a medical board me out, permanent desk assignment or medical retirement. My choice. Your leg is healing ahead of schedule according to my doctors, but not fast enough, not strong enough. She finally looked up at him. There's a fitness evaluation in 6 weeks. Pass it and I stay on active duty with a chance at reassignment. Fail it and I'm done. What kind of evaluation? Maya laughed bitterly. The kind designed to be impossible for someone with my injury history. Full Army combat fitness test standards, plus an additional tactical assessment. They want to see me deadlift 225 pounds, complete a 3-mile run in under 24 minutes, execute close-quarters combat drills, and demonstrate tactical mobility under simulated combat conditions. Jake let out a low whistle. That's aggressive. Most soldiers couldn't pass that even without injuries. That's the point. Maya's hands tightened around her cup. They don't want me to pass. They want me to fail, to prove that I should never have been in that convoy, should never have been in Afghanistan, should never have been anything more than a desk jockey pushing paperwork. Who's they? The same people who killed Project Athena, the same people who have been trying to bury what we were trained to do. She met his eyes, and Jake saw raw desperation there. I can't go back, Jake. I can't spend the rest of my career in some basement office, counting inventory and filing reports. I'll lose my mind. Jake understood that feeling, the need to be in the fight, to use the skills you'd bled for. He'd seen what happened to operators who got sidelined. Depression, substance abuse, a slow withering of the spirit that was worse than any physical injury. "Show me," he said. "What?" "Show me what you can do, right now. I want to see where you're really at." Maya hesitated, then nodded. They went back to the PT wing, which was now mostly empty. She walked him through her current capabilities, the pistol squats, weighted lunges, box jumps that made Jake wince with every landing. Her form was good, her determination absolute. But he could see the pain, see the way her leg wanted to buckle, see the tremors that ran through her muscles. After 20 minutes, she was drenched in sweat and breathing hard. She collapsed onto a bench, her leg cramping visibly. "So," she asked between gasps, "what's the verdict?" Jake sat beside her, considering his words carefully. "You're strong, stronger than you should be given your timeline, but you're not ready for what they're asking, not in 6 weeks. Maya's face fell. "I know, but I don't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice." Jake pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts. "I have friends, good friends. Some of them work in adaptive training programs for wounded warriors. Others run private facilities that train operators, current and former. They owe me favors." "Jake, I can't afford." "You're not paying anything except sweat and determination." He stopped on a contact, Marcus Chen, a former SEAL who'd lost his leg in Ramadi and now ran an elite training center in Coronado. Marcus trains guys like us, people who refuse to let injuries define them. He's gotten double amputees through SWAT qualifications, helped wounded vets become triathletes. If anyone can get you ready in 6 weeks, it's him. Maya stared at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Why would you do this for me? You barely know me." "I know enough." Jake met her gaze steadily. "I know you saved lives, I know you're a fighter, and I know the system is trying to crush you for being better than they expected." He paused. "Besides, I remember what you told me in Bagram. You wanted to make your parents proud. Are you going to let some bureaucrats take that away?" A tear rolled down Maya's cheek, but she wiped it away angrily. "No, hell no." "Then let me help." Maya extended her hand. "Okay, but I'm warning you, I'm a terrible student. Stubborn, argumentative, and I don't know when to quit." Jake shook her hand, grinning. "Perfect. Those are exactly the qualities we're looking for." Over the next week, Jake made the arrangements. Marcus agreed immediately when he heard the story, offering his facility for early morning sessions before Jake's regular duties. 2 other former SEALs signed on as assistant trainers, Tony Rodriguez, a combat diving instructor, and Sarah Mitchell, one of the few women to complete the SEALs fitness standards in an experimental program. The night before their first real training session, Maya texted Jake, "Are you sure about this? I don't want you risking your reputation for me." His response was immediate. "My reputation can handle it. Can your pride handle admitting you need help?" Her reply made him smile. "My pride is the least damaged part of me right now. See you at 500. Jake set his phone down, staring at the ceiling of his barracks room. He was taking a risk. Helping Maya could raise questions, draw attention to things that were meant to stay buried. The DoD contractor's warning echoed in his mind. Some things are better left unexamined. But Jake had never been good at following warnings when something felt right. And helping Maya Torres fight her way back, that felt like the rightest thing he'd done in a long time. He just hoped they could pull it off before the system ground her into dust. The abandoned warehouse in Coronado smelled of rust, concrete dust, and years of disuse. Maya arrived at 500 sharp, her leg already aching from the drive. Through the rusted metal door, she could hear voices. Male, confident, the easy banter of warriors who'd seen combat and survived. She hesitated, hand on the door handle. This was real now. No more pushing through rehab alone in sterile hospital rooms. No more hiding behind the logistics officer facade. These were SEALs, men who would see through any pretense, who would know instantly if she was wasting their time. You saved 6 lives, she reminded herself. You earned this. Maya pushed open the door. The warehouse interior had been converted into a makeshift training facility. Weight racks, pull-up bars, and tactical shooting lanes occupied one half. The other half was a kill house, a maze of plywood walls configured to simulate urban combat scenarios. 3 men stood near a coffee station, turning as she entered. Jake stepped forward, still in his Navy PT gear. Maya, meet the team, Marcus Chen. He gestured to a muscular Asian man in his late 30s, wearing a prosthetic leg below his left knee. Lost it in Ramadi 2006. Now he's faster than he was before. Marcus extended his hand, his grip firm. Jake tells me you're tough, we'll see. Tony Rodriguez. Jake indicated a stocky Hispanic man with a shaved head and kind eyes. Best combat swimmer I ever worked with. He'll handle your conditioning. Ma'am, Tony nodded respectfully. And Sarah Mitchell. She went through our experimental integration program, made it further than 90% of the male candidates before politics shut it down. Sarah was tall, lean, with the coiled strength of a predator. Her handshake was crushing. Heard you killed 2 insurgents while bleeding out. Impressive. 1, Maya corrected. The other shot was luck. Sarah's smile was knowing. Sure it was. Marcus clapped his hands together. All right, enough socializing. Torres, you said your eval is in 6 weeks. That gives us 42 days to make you into something resembling combat ready. We're going to start with a baseline assessment. I need to see what we're working with. What do you want me to do? Maya asked. Everything. Marcus gestured to the weight area. Deadlift, squat, pull-ups, then we'll move to the kill house. I want to see how you move under pressure. The next hour was brutal. Maya pushed through deadlifts, 135 pounds, then 155, her legs screaming with each rep. Pull-ups were agony, her reconstructed core muscles burning. Box jumps made her vision blur with pain. But she didn't stop, didn't complain. Finally, Marcus called a halt. Okay, now the interesting part. Tony set up the kill house scenario, live sim rounds. Maya's heart rate spiked. She hadn't touched a weapon since Afghanistan, hadn't run drills since before her injury. The muscle memory was there, buried under months of hospital beds and physical therapy, but could she access it? Tony handed her a Glock 19 loaded with simunition rounds, painful but non-lethal marking cartridges. Standard building clearance, unknown number of hostiles. Rules of engagement are simple. Don't die, don't shoot civilians. Jake watched from the observation platform as Maya checked the weapon, her movements automatic and professional. Magazine out, chamber check, press check, reload. Her hands moved with the kind of fluid confidence that took thousands of repetitions to develop. Where did she really learn that? Sarah murmured beside him. That's the question, isn't it? Jake replied. Marcus started the scenario. Begin. Maya moved. Jake had seen thousands of operators run kill houses. He'd run them himself countless times, but watching Maya was different. Despite the obvious pain, despite the leg that wanted to buckle, she flowed through the structure like water, smooth, efficient, deadly. She sliced the pie on corners with textbook precision. Her muzzle discipline was perfect. When the first pop-up target appeared, hostile with a weapon, her double tap was so fast it sounded like one shot. She cleared 3 rooms in 90 seconds, neutralizing 4 hostile targets while avoiding 2 civilian pop-ups. Her movement wasn't just competent, it was exceptional. This was someone who'd run these drills hundreds, maybe thousands of times. When she emerged from the kill house, breathing hard but eyes sharp, the warehouse was silent. Marcus broke it first. What the hell was your MOS again? 92 Alpha, logistics. Bullshit. Tony's voice wasn't angry, just matter of fact. I've trained logistics officers. They don't move like that. They don't shoot like that. Maya's jaw tightened. That's my MOS. Jake stepped down from the observation platform, his eyes locked on Maya's face. No more games, Maya. These people are putting their time, their resources, their reputations on the line to help you. They deserve the truth. For a long moment, Maya stood frozen, her hands clenched at her sides. The weight of the secret she'd carried for 3 years pressed down on her. The NDA she'd signed. The threats. The warnings that speaking about Project Athena would end her career and possibly land her in prison. But she was tired. So tired of hiding, of pretending to be less than she was. "Can I trust you?" she asked quietly. "All of you." Sarah stepped forward. "We've all got security clearances. We've all kept secrets that matter. Whatever you say stays in this room." Maya took a deep breath. 5 years ago, I was recruited for a program. They called it Project Athena. It was a pilot initiative to train female soldiers for direct combat roles, not support, not auxiliary, real combat integration. "The kind that officially doesn't exist," Marcus said slowly. "Exactly." Maya walked to a bench and sat, her leg finally giving out. "They selected 30 of us from across the Army, women with top fitness scores, high GT scores, psychological profiles that matched special operations candidates. We spent 18 months at a classified facility in North Carolina." "What kind of training?" Jake asked, though he was already starting to understand. "Everything." Maya's voice was distant, remembering. "We started with Ranger School fundamentals, land navigation, small unit tactics, airborne operations. Then we moved into advanced marksmanship, close quarters combat, explosive breaching, SEER training. They brought in instructors from Delta, from the 75th Ranger Regiment, even some agency contractors." Tony whistled low. That's essentially special operations qualification." "That was the idea," Maya continued. "The program was supposed to prove that women could meet the same standards as men, perform the same missions. We were going to be integrated into combat units, prove that gender didn't matter, only capability." "What happened?" Sarah asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. "Politics." The word came out bitter. 6 months before graduation, someone leaked the program's existence to the press. Conservative lawmakers went ballistic, called it a social experiment that endangered national security. Liberal lawmakers countered that it was about time, but the debate became so toxic that DOD decided the easiest solution was to kill the program entirely. "And the women who'd spent 18 months training," Jake prompted. "Reassigned to conventional roles, given new MOSs, made to sign NDAs that threatened court-martial and federal prosecution if we ever disclosed our training." Maya laughed bitterly. "They gave me 2 choices, become a logistics officer or get discharged with a general under honorable conditions, basically a black mark that would follow me forever. So I chose logistics. Spent 3 years managing supply chains and counting ammunition. While watching men with half my skills deploy on missions, I was trained to execute." The warehouse was silent, except for the distant sound of traffic outside. "That's why you fought so hard during the ambush," Jake said. "You weren't just surviving, you were finally getting to use your training." "For about 5 minutes, then I got shot." Maya's hands trembled slightly. The DoD contractor who showed up at Bagram. He was there to remind me that my skills are still classified, that I'm still bound by that NDA, that if I ever tell anyone about Athena, they'll destroy me. Marcus crossed his arms, his expression thoughtful. But you just told us. Yeah, I did. Maya met his eyes. Because I'm done hiding. I'm done pretending to be something I'm not. In 6 weeks, I either pass that evaluation and get a chance at a real assignment, or I get medical boarded into oblivion. Either way, my career as a logistics officer is over. I might as well go down swinging. Sarah crouched in front of Maya, her expression intense. What kind of assignment are you hopping for? There's a new joint task force forming under JSOC. They're finally opening certain roles to qualified women, not full SEAL positions but support roles that work directly with Tier 1 units. Intelligence, tactical analysis, some direct action in specific scenarios. Maya's voice hardened with determination. I applied. They're considering me, but only if I can prove my injuries haven't made me a liability. That's what the evaluation is really about. 6 weeks, Tony ran a hand over his shaved head. It's not much time. It's what we have, Marcus said. And if Project Athena trained her like she says, then the foundation is there. We're not building from scratch. We're reactivating muscle memory and building around her injury. Jake felt a surge of respect for his friends. They could have walked away, could have decided this was too risky, too complicated. Instead, they were already strategizing. All right, Tors. Marcus's voice took on a commanding edge. Here's how this works. We train 6 days a week, 500 to 800. You don't miss sessions. You don't half-ass anything. You push through pain, but you tell us immediately if something feels wrong. We're building you up, not destroying you. Understood. We're going to focus on 3 areas: raw strength and conditioning, tactical movement with your injury, and psychological resilience. He ticked them off on his fingers. Tony handles conditioning. Sarah works on tactical movement. I supervise strength training, and Jake, he glanced at his friend. You're her mental fitness coach. You keep her head in the game when the pain gets bad. Jake nodded. I can do that. Sarah stood, offering Maya her hand and pulling her up. One more thing. When you're in this warehouse, you're not a logistics officer. You're an operator. You don't apologize for your skills, you don't downplay your abilities, and you sure as hell don't let anyone, including yourself, tell you that you don't belong. Maya felt something break open inside her chest, a pressure she'd been carrying for 3 years finally releasing. For the first time since Project Athena ended, she was standing in a room full of people who saw her for what she really was. Not a desk jockey, not a mistake, not a political inconvenience. A warrior. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. All of you. Marcus grinned. Thank us after you pass that evaluation. Now let's get back to work. Those 6 weeks aren't going to train themselves. As Maya moved back toward the kill house, Jake caught her arm gently. Hey, you okay? She met his eyes, and for the first time in months, her smile was genuine. Yeah. For the first time in a long time, I actually am. Week 1 was hell. Maya's body rebelled against every movement. The injury sites, her leg, her side, screamed with each exercise. Tony pushed her through swimming drills in the frigid Pacific, the cold water both numbing and excruciating. Sarah ran her through tactical scenarios until Maya's legs gave out completely, forcing Jake to carry her to his truck. I can't do this, Maya gasped on day 5, collapsed on the warehouse floor after a particularly brutal circuit. It's too much, too fast. Jake knelt beside her, his voice firm but not unkind. Yes, you can. You're just scared of how much it's going to cost. I'm not scared. Bullshit. He helped her sit up. You're terrified that you'll give everything you have and still fail. That's why you're looking for an exit now before it matters. Maya glared at him, anger flashing in her eyes. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Jake met her glare steadily. I watched half my Bud S class quit during Hell Week. You know what they all had in common? They started questioning whether they could do it. The moment you ask that question, you've already lost. So what? I just ignore the pain. Pretend my leg isn't held together with pins and prayer. No, you acknowledge the pain, respect it, and push through it anyway. Jake stood, offering his hand. Now get up. We've got 3 more scenarios to run. Maya stared at his hand for a long moment, then took it. Week 2 brought progress. Small victories that accumulated into something larger. Maya's deadlift increased to 175 pounds. Her 3-mile run time dropped from 32 minutes to 27. The tremors in her left leg decreased as the muscles strengthened around the reconstructed bone. But it was in the kill house where she truly shined. Sarah set up increasingly complex scenarios, multiple floors, civilian hostages, time pressures. Maya adapted to each one with frightening efficiency. Her tactical decision-making was exceptional, her threat assessment instant and accurate. "Watch this," Sarah told Jake one morning, pulling him to the observation window. "I'm running her through a scenario we use for SEAL team qualification." The setup was brutal. A 3-story structure, 6 hostile targets, 3 civilian targets, and a ticking clock. 30 seconds to clear the building or lose the hostage. Marcus started the timer. Execute. Maya exploded through the door, her injured leg barely slowing her. She cleared the first floor in 8 seconds, 2 hostiles neutralized with precise double taps, 1 civilian identified and passed. Second floor, hostile behind a desk, another emerging from a doorway. She engaged both while moving, never breaking stride. Third floor, the remaining 2 hostiles were in a room with the hostage, a tactical nightmare. Jake watched as Maya used a flashbang simulator, entered during the distraction, and neutralized both targets without hitting the civilian. Total time, 26 seconds. "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "That's faster than my time." Sarah was grinning. "Told you, she's not just good, she's exceptional." Jake felt a complex mix of pride and concern. Maya was proving she belonged, but she was also drawing attention. The kind of attention that could raise questions about where she'd learned these skills. Week 3 was when things changed between them. They were working late. Everyone else had gone home. Jake was spotting Maya through a strength session when her leg suddenly buckled during a weighted lunge. She went down hard, crying out in pain. "Maya," Jake dropped beside her, his hands immediately checking for new injury. "Where? What happened?" "Cramp," she gasped, her face white. "Just a cramp, old injury site." But Jake saw the tears streaming down her face, not from the cramp, but from something deeper. 3 weeks of relentless pushing, of fighting through pain, of refusing to show weakness had finally caught up with her. "Hey," he said softly, "it's okay, you're allowed to break sometimes." "No, I'm not." Her voice was fierce through the tears. "I don't have that luxury. If I break, if I show weakness." "Maya," Jake's hands cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. Crying doesn't make you weak, it makes you human." Something shifted in that moment. The professional distance they'd maintained crumbled. Maya's hands covered his, and they stayed like that, frozen in the intimacy of shared vulnerability. "I'm scared," she whispered. "What if I'm not enough?" "You are. I've seen you. You're more than enough." Their faces were inches apart. Jake could feel her breath, see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. It would be so easy to close that distance, to cross the line they'd both been carefully avoiding. Maya leaned forward slightly. Jake did the same. Then his phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "How's she doing? Looked like she was pushing hard today." The spell broke. They pulled apart, both breathing hard. We should keep this professional," Jake said, though every instinct screamed otherwise. Maya nodded, wiping her eyes. "Yeah, you're right, after the evaluation, after I know where I stand." "After," Jake agreed. But as he helped her up, his hand lingered on hers a moment longer than necessary. Week 4 brought a visitor. Jake arrived at the warehouse to find a black SUV parked outside, government plates. His stomach sank. Through the window, he saw the DoD contractor from Afghanistan standing with Maya, his body language aggressive. Jake entered quietly, staying out of sight but close enough to hear. "Making a spectacle of yourself," the contractor was saying. "Training with Navy SEALs. Do you understand how many eyes that puts on you?" "I'm training for my evaluation," Maya replied, her voice steady. "That's all." "That's all?" The man's laugh was harsh. "You're demonstrating capabilities that your official record says you shouldn't have. You're creating a paper trail that leads directly back to Athena. Then maybe Athena shouldn't have been buried in the first place." The contractor stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Listen carefully, Tors. There are people in Washington who would love to use you as evidence that the program was a mistake. Look, they'd say, we trained these women to be killers and now they can't be controlled. Is that what you want? To be the poster child for why women shouldn't be in combat?" Maya's hands clenched into fists. "I'm not a mistake, and I won't apologize for being good at what I do. Your pride is going to destroy you. Better that than dying slowly behind a desk." The contractor studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "The JSOC task force, you really think they'll take you?" "If I pass the evaluation, yes. And if you pass, if you get assigned to that unit, you'll be under a microscope. Every mission, every decision, every mistake will be magnified because you're one of the first. Can you handle that pressure?" "I was trained to handle it." A ghost of a smile crossed the contractor's face. "Yes, you were." He turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, Tors, I hope you make it. Not everyone from Athena gave up. Most took their discharge and walked away. But you're still fighting. That counts for something." After he left, Jake emerged from the shadows. Maya was standing rigid, staring at nothing. "How much did you hear?" she asked without turning. "Enough." Jake walked to her side. "He's wrong, you know. You're not going to be a poster child for failure. You're going to be proof that the program should have continued." Maya finally looked at him. "You really believe that?" "I know that." Jake's voice was firm. "In 2 weeks, you're going to walk into that evaluation and show them exactly what Project Athena created. Not a mistake, a warrior." Week 5 was the final push. The team increased intensity, running Maya through scenarios that would break most operators. 20-hour training days, multiple kill house runs under fatigue, psychological stress tests designed to break concentration. Maya never quit. On the final Friday before her evaluation, Marcus called everyone together. "Tors, you've done something I didn't think was possible," he said. "You've not only recovered from career-ending injuries, you've exceeded your pre-injury capabilities. Your deadlift is at 215 pounds. Your run time is 23 minutes. Your tactical scores are in the top percentile of every operator I've trained." Tony stepped forward, handing her a challenge coin, the mark of a warrior. "You've earned this." Sarah hugged her fiercely. "Go show those bastards what Project Athena really was." Jake waited until the others had left before approaching. "Ready for Monday?" Maya's smile was confident, genuine. "Yeah, I am." "Maya, I need to say something." Jake took a breath. "These past 5 weeks working with you, it's been the most meaningful thing I've done in a long time. You're incredible, not just as an operator but as a person." "Jake, let me finish." His eyes held hers. "After the evaluation, after you get that assignment, and you will, I want to take you to dinner, a real dinner, not as your trainer or your friend, as someone who wants to know everything about you." Maya's breath caught. "That sounds like a date." "It is a date." She stepped closer, her hand finding his. "Then yes, after the evaluation, after I prove them all wrong, it's a date." They stood like that, hands clasped, the promise of something more hanging between them like electricity. Maya Tors was ready. Monday morning arrived cold and gray, fog rolling in from the Pacific. Maya stood outside the Naval Special Warfare Command fitness facility, staring at the building that would determine her future. Jake stood beside her, 2 coffee cups in hand. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, offering her one. "Slept like a baby," she lied, accepting the cup. "A baby who woke up every hour in a cold sweat." Jake smiled. "That's the spirit." Inside, the evaluation course was set up like a gauntlet designed by someone who wanted her to fail. Maya recognized the hand of bureaucracy, every obstacle calculated to exploit her weaknesses. The panel of observers sat in an elevated viewing area: 3 senior officers, 2 physical therapists, a sports medicine specialist, and a civilian in a dark suit who Maya recognized immediately. The JSOC representative, the man who would decide if she got her shot. "Staff Sergeant Torres," a colonel called out, his voice echoing through the facility. Colonel Hendricks, old school, decorated, and known for his opposition to women in combat roles. "You understand the parameters of today's evaluation?" "Yes, sir." Maya's voice was steady. "You'll complete a modified Army combat fitness test, followed by tactical mobility scenarios, and ending with a combat simulation under live fire conditions." Hendricks consulted his clipboard. "Your injured leg has been documented. No allowances will be made for your condition. You either meet the standard or you don't. Clear?" "Crystal clear, sir." "Then let's begin." The first hour was pure physical torment. Deadlifts. She needed 225 pounds for 3 reps. Maya approached the bar, Jake's voice echoing in her mind. "You've done 215. 10 more pounds is nothing but fear." She gripped the bar, planted her feet, and lifted. The weight came up smooth. 1, 2, 3. She dropped it with a controlled bang. "Time 23 seconds, an evaluator called out. "Pass." Next came pull-ups, sit-ups, the sprint drag carry. Each event pushed her body to its limits. Her legs screamed, the old injury sites burning with each movement. But 5 weeks of brutal training had rebuilt her, not just physically but mentally. She'd learned to embrace the pain, to use it as fuel. After 90 minutes, she'd passed every physical standard. "Impressive," one of the physical therapists murmured to his colleague. "Given her injury timeline, this is remarkable." But Colonel Hendricks didn't look impressed. He looked suspicious. The tactical mobility test was next. An obstacle course designed to simulate combat movement, walls to scale, trenches to cross, a tire run, rope climbs, all while carrying 50 pounds of gear and a rifle. "Begin." Maya attacked the course with controlled aggression. Wall climb. She used her good leg for the initial push, hauled herself over. Trench crossing, a leap that made her heart stop, but she landed solid. The tire run was agony, each impact jarring her reconstructed femur. Then came the rope climb. 15 feet of thick naval rope, arms only, no leg assistance allowed. Maya jumped, gripped, and began to climb. Her arms burned. 10 feet, 12 feet. Her left leg started cramping, the muscles seizing. "Don't look down, don't think about falling, climb." She reached the top, slapped the buzzer, and descended. When her feet hit the ground, her left leg buckled momentarily. She caught herself, forced it to lock, and continued running toward the finish. "Time 4 minutes 32 seconds, the evaluator called. "Pass." 2 down, 1 to go. The final phase was the combat simulation, a live fire exercise in a shoot house. The scenario was classified until she entered, designed to test decision-making under pressure. Through the observation window, Jake watched the panel's faces. Most were impressed. Hendricks remained stone-faced. The JSOC rep was leaning forward, intensely focused. "Final scenario," Hendricks announced. "Simulated casualty evacuation under fire. You'll enter a hostile structure, locate and extract a wounded friendly, and reach the extraction point. Live rounds will be fired overhead. Time limit, 8 minutes. Maya entered the structure, and the simulation began. The wounded soldier was a 180-pound dummy positioned on the second floor. Maya cleared the first floor, moving with the tactical precision Sarah had drilled into her. Stairs, always the most dangerous part. She sliced the pie, checked corners, advanced. Found the casualty. She hoisted the dummy into a fireman's carry and started back down. That's when her leg betrayed her. The cramping that had started during the rope climb returned with a vengeance, the muscles seizing completely. Maya stumbled on the stairs, nearly dropping the dummy. Pain exploded through her thigh, white-hot and blinding. In the observation room, Jake shot to his feet. "Come on, Maya, you've got this." She caught herself on the railing, gasping. The dummy's weight pressed down on her injured leg. Every instinct screamed to put it down, to give her leg a moment to recover. But 8 minutes meant 8 minutes. Maya gritted her teeth, adjusted the weight, and continued. Her face contorted in agony with each step. Her leg dragged, barely supporting her weight, but she moved. One step, another, another. Live rounds cracked overhead, the added stress of simulated enemy fire. Smoke filled the corridor. Maya's vision blurred from pain and sweat, but she kept moving. The extraction point was 50 feet away, 40, 30. Her leg gave out completely. Maya went down on one knee, the dummy sliding from her shoulders. For a moment she stayed there, breathing hard, the pain overwhelming. Through the smoke, she could see the extraction point, so close. In the observation room, Colonel Hendricks leaned back in his chair, a satisfied expression on his face. "There it is, physical failure under stress, exactly what I—" "She's moving," the JSOC rep interrupted. Maya was crawling. One hand gripping the dummy's harness, dragging it behind her, she crawled toward the extraction point. Her left leg was useless, dragging behind her, but she used her arms, her good leg, pure determination. 10 feet, 5. She crossed the line with 14 seconds to spare, collapsing beside the dummy. Time 7 minutes 46 seconds, the evaluator called out. Pass. The observation room erupted in murmurs. The physical therapists were shaking their heads in disbelief. Even some of the officers looked impressed, but Colonel Hendricks stood abruptly. "Objection." The room fell silent. "That was not a completion," Hendricks declared. "She crawled the final distance. That's a tactical failure. In real combat, crawling while dragging a casualty would get both soldiers killed." "She completed the objective within the time limit," the JSOC rep countered. "The spirit of the evaluation is combat readiness, not checking boxes." Hendricks turned to face the panel. "Gentlemen, I think we need to address the elephant in the room. Staff Sergeant Tor's performance today has been extraordinary, too extraordinary." Maya was helped into the observation room, limping badly, to hear the debrief. Jake stood near the back, his jaw clenched. Hendricks continued. "According to her service record, Tor's is a 92A, an automated logistical specialist. Yet today she demonstrated tactical proficiency that exceeds most infantry soldiers. Her weapons handling, her tactical movement, her performance in the kill house. These are not skills a logistics officer should possess." "What are you implying, Colonel?" the JSOC rep asked, his tone dangerous. "I'm questioning the integrity of this evaluation. Either Staff Sergeant Tor's received undisclosed specialized training, which raises questions about what else she's hiding, or she's been training specifically for this evaluation, which suggests premeditation and possibly coaching." Jake couldn't stay silent any longer. "Permission to speak, sir." Hendricks glared at him. "You're out of order, petty officer." "With respect, sir, you're out of line." Jake stepped forward, his voice controlled but passionate. "I was in the convoy ambush in Afghanistan. I watched Staff Sergeant Tor save 6 lives while bleeding out from a femoral artery injury. She repaired communications equipment under fire, organized a defensive perimeter, and neutralized an enemy combatant, all with injuries that should have put her in shock. That's irrelevant too. It's completely relevant, Jake's voice rose. You want to know where she learned her skills? She learned them the same place every operator learns them, through blood, sweat, and refusing to quit when every instinct says to stop. I've worked with Tier 1 operators my entire career. Staff Sergeant Torres has the heart of a warrior. Maybe that makes you uncomfortable, but it doesn't make her unqualified. Stand down, Petty Officer Reeves, Hendricks snapped. No, sir. Not until you stop trying to disqualify someone for being better than you expected. The room was electric with tension. The JSOC rep stood, his expression unreadable. Colonel Hendricks, do you have evidence of impropriety? Hendricks's jaw worked. No, but I have concerns about someone who wasn't honest about their background. I was honest about everything I was allowed to be honest about, sir, Maya interrupted, her voice clear despite the pain. My service record is accurate, my training is classified. And yes, I prepared extensively for this evaluation because it meant everything to me. But I didn't cheat. I didn't take shortcuts. I earned every rep, every run, every single movement you saw today. Classified training, Hendricks pounced on the word. So you admit there's something in your background that doesn't appear in your record. The JSOC rep held up a hand. That's enough. Staff Sergeant Torres, step outside. We need to deliberate. Maya limped toward the door, Jake moving to help her. As they exited, she whispered, Did I just destroy my career by admitting that? If they reject you for telling the truth, Jake replied, then they don't deserve you anyway. They sat in the hallway, waiting. 15 minutes became 30, 30 became an hour. Finally, the door opened. The JSOC rep emerged alone. The JSOC representative stood before them, his face professionally neutral. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Jake's hand found hers, squeezing once before letting go, a silent gesture of support. Staff Sergeant Torres, the man began, and Maya braced for rejection. The panel has reached a decision. Here it comes, Maya thought. All that work, all that pain for nothing. Your performance today was exceptional by any standard. However, Colonel Hendricks raised legitimate concerns about discrepancies between your official record and your demonstrated capabilities. He paused, and Maya felt her world tilting, which is why I made some calls during our deliberation. He pulled out his phone, turning it to show Maya a document. Her blood ran cold. It was a classified file, Project Athena stamped across the top in red letters. I have the appropriate clearances, the man continued, and I've been briefed on the program, all 30 participants, what you accomplished, what you endured when it was canceled. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. You were supposed to be the future Torres. Instead, you got buried in bureaucracy. Sir, I can explain, Maya started. No need. I understand why you couldn't disclose it. He pocketed his phone. Colonel Hendricks doesn't have the clearance to know about Athena, and he never will. As far as he's concerned, you're just an exceptionally motivated soldier who trained hard for this evaluation. The man glanced at Jake, then back to Maya. The panel voted 4-1 in your favor. Colonel Hendricks was the dissenting vote. Congratulations, Staff Sergeant, you passed. Maya's legs nearly gave out for an entirely different reason. I passed. More than passed. You exceeded standards in every category except the final casualty extraction, where you met the minimum time requirement through unorthodox but effective means. A hint of a smile crossed his face. The JSOC task force needs people who don't quit when conventional methods fail, people who find a way to complete the mission, no matter what. So I'm in, Maya's voice cracked with emotion. I'm actually in. You'll receive your official orders within 72 hours. Report to Fort Bragg in 3 weeks for task force orientation and team integration. He extended his hand. Welcome to Joint Special Operations Command, Staff Sergeant Torres. Maya shook his hand, unable to speak, tears streaming down her face. The man nodded to Jake and walked away, leaving them alone in the corridor. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Maya turned to Jake and collapsed into his arms, her body shaking with sobs. Relief, joy, exhaustion, and 3 years of pent-up frustration all pouring out at once. "You did it," Jake whispered into her hair. "I knew you would." "I couldn't have done it without you," Maya managed between sobs. "Without all of you. You had it in you all along. We just reminded you." They stood like that, holding each other in the empty hallway until Maya's tears subsided. When she pulled back, her face was blotchy and her eyes were red, but she was smiling, genuinely, completely smiling. "I need to call Marcus, Tony, Sarah." "They know," Jake said. "I texted them during the deliberation. They're waiting at the warehouse with celebratory beer and probably very bad pizza." Maya laughed, the sound pure and unreserved. "Then what are we waiting for?" The warehouse celebration was exactly what Maya needed. Marcus presented her with a challenge coin from his old SEAL team. Tony insisted on arm wrestling. She beat him, her strength from training finally paying off in the most ridiculous way. Sarah gave her a fierce hug and whispered, "Make them regret ever doubting us." But eventually, the others left, citing early morning obligations and giving Maya and Jake increasingly obvious looks. Soon, it was just the two of them, sitting on the warehouse floor with the last of the beer. "So," Jake said, "Fort Bragg in 3 weeks. "Yeah," Maya picked at the label on her bottle. "Where are you headed?" "That's the thing." Jake turned to face her. "My team got orders yesterday. We're rotating back to Afghanistan, same operational theater where you'll be working." Maya's heart skipped. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. Different units, but we'll be in the same sandbox." He set down his beer, his expression intense. "Maya, these past 5 weeks working with you, they've been the best weeks I've had in a long time. You're incredible, not just as an operator, but as a person. You're fierce and stubborn, and you make me want to be better." "Jake, let me finish." He took her hand. "I know the timing is terrible. We're both deploying, both have missions that matter. I'm not asking you to figure everything out right now. But I need you to know, when we're both back stateside, when the dust settles, I want to see where this goes. For real." Maya's throat tightened with emotion. "I want that too, more than you know." "But," Jake prompted, hearing the hesitation. "But we both have something to prove first," Maya said softly. "You need to lead your team. I need to prove I belong in that task force, that Project Athena wasn't a waste." She squeezed his hand. "We've both spent our whole lives training for what comes next. I don't want to start something when we can't give it the attention it deserves." Jake nodded slowly. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying," Maya took a breath, "when we're both back, when we've done what we need to do, let's have that date. A real one, not in a warehouse or a hospital. Somewhere nice where we can be just Jake and Maya, not Petty Officer Reeves and Staff Sergeant Torres." "That sounds perfect." Jake leaned closer. "But that's months away. I get one thing now." "What's that?" Instead of answering, Jake cupped her face and kissed her. It was gentle, sweet, and charged with all the promise of what could be. Maya melted into it, her hands finding his shoulders, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, speaking everything they couldn't yet say aloud. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Okay," Maya whispered, "that was worth waiting for. Just imagine what the second one will be like." Jake's smile was devastating. "You're making it very hard to be patient." "Good," he kissed her forehead. "Then you'll come back, we'll both come back." 2 weeks later, Maya stood at the airport in full uniform, her deployment bag at her feet. Jake was there, also in uniform, shipping out on a different flight. They'd said their goodbyes the night before, dinner with the team, toasts to future victories, promises to stay safe. But now, in the harsh fluorescent lights of the terminal, reality was setting in. "You have everything?" Jake asked, though they both knew it was a delaying tactic. "Yeah, orders, medical records, 3 years of pent-up determination." Maya smiled. The usual deployment kit. Maya, Jake's voice was serious. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't take unnecessary risks trying to prove yourself. You've already proven everything. Just do the mission, stay safe, and come home. I promise if you promise the same thing. Deal? He pulled her into a hug, holding her tight. Against her ear, he whispered, I'm proud of you. Whatever happens over there, remember that someone back here believes in you completely. Maya's eyes burned with unshed tears. Same goes for you. Come back to me, Jake Reeves. Wouldn't miss it for the world. They separated as Maya's flight was called. She shouldered her bag, gave him one last look, memorizing his face, his smile, the way he looked at her like she was capable of anything, and walked toward her gate. Halfway there, she turned back. Jake was still watching. She called out across the terminal, 8 months. 8 months, he called back. It's a date. Maya turned and walked through the gate, her head held high, her stride confident despite the slight limp that would probably never fully disappear. Behind her was 3 years of frustration, bureaucracy, and forced mediocrity. Ahead was the mission she'd trained for, the role she'd fought for, the chance to finally be who she was meant to be. She'd been wounded, shot, broken, buried under paperwork and NDAs, and people who couldn't see past her gender to her capabilities. But she wasn't broken, not even close. As the plane lifted off, Maya looked out the window at the California coastline disappearing below. Somewhere down there, Jake was boarding his own flight. Somewhere in North Carolina, a task force was waiting for her. Somewhere in Afghanistan, missions awaited that would test everything Project Athena had taught her. She was ready. For the first time in 3 years, Maya Torres wasn't pretending to be someone else. She wasn't hiding her skills or apologizing for her strength. She was exactly who she'd trained to be, a warrior heading into the fight she'd always been meant for. Wounded, yes. The scars would always be there, physical and emotional reminders of what it cost to fight for her place. But unbroken, absolutely. And when she came back, when both she and Jake came back from their deployments, they'd have that date. They'd have time to explore what this connection between them really meant. They'd have a future built on mutual respect, shared values, and the unshakable foundation of two people who understood what it meant to fight for what mattered. Maya smiled, closed her eyes, and let the drone of the engines carry her toward her new beginning. The SEAL medic and everyone else had been stunned by her secret training. But they hadn't seen anything yet.